Adikrishna from third year UG philosophy. So my topic here is radical humanism and materialism based on M. Roy. So M. Roy was a political philosopher in the early 20th century. So he was in the beginning of his work, he was a revolutionary terrorist, and actually he was involved in transporting arms and similar activities, but it failed because of certain reasons. And after that, he also participated in the revolutionary terrorist movement, which was going on in Bengal against the British colonialism. And then he actually understood that the revolutionary movements in India was not producing much impact as it should be, according to his perspective, because he believed in the inclusion of the social society as a whole, or the certain underprivileged sections of the society in the fight, so that it produces some result. But he could not see that, which is why he later got influenced by socialism after flying to America. And from there, he was also part of the formation of the Communist Party of Mexico, and he also was a member of the International Communist Society. And then he got also partnered with them and formed his own party based on his new theory of radical humanism. He is one of the very few political philosophers with a raw theory, which is not just an abstraction or like adoption of another man's theory, and he influenced it in some way. So his change in views can be of different reasons, and first reason is that his expulsion from the communism by the end of 1929, and he was against the Stalinistic authoritarianism which existed at that time, and he believed that it goes against the principles of communism and was limiting the power to only a few number of bureaucratic elite groups. And he also had a philosophical change when he saw that the overemphasis on economic rules or economic situation of that reduced humans to just a few classes and disregarded their individual liberty. And this, after which he returned to India in 1930 and spent a few years, like 6 years in prison, which also influenced his political thought. Then his main transformation is from Marxism to radical humanism. So in the beginning of his time in communism, he actually participated in many global forums and was very famous throughout the time. And then his journey from a revolutionary terrorist to radical humanism was actually because after his interpretation of Lenin's thesis on nationalism and colonialism, and he tried to understand the Marxism in a context of colonialism. He opposed to the ideology of Indian National Congress, which was leading the nationalist struggle at the time of his return to India, and he suggested that in any part of the world, the nationalist movement was actually carried forward by the disregarded sections of the society and not just by the politicians. He emphasized that nationalist movements were always independent of the political leaders whom the masses distrusted. So he said that the future of Indian politics will be determined by the social forces which always remain antagonistic to the class struggle. And he said that the current ideals of the Indian political philosophy needs to be changed. And then which is why he proposed this theory of radical humanism, because after returning to India, he actually started a new party, which is the Radical Democratic Party in 1940. And first he worked on that basis, comparing some ideas of Marxism with his ideas, but he was not satisfied with that, which led to the new movement of radical humanism, which was not widely popularized in India, but has its own theories. Like, he called radical humanism as new humanism because he found that humanism enriched with the scientific knowledge and scientific experience that was gained through centuries of modern civilization. We know that in the 19th century, many scientific discoveries and theories was in prevalence, which helped him to formulate his new theory. And his greatest emphasis was always on the personality of the individual as a human being. He believed that we should not classify humans into classes and limit themselves as a group. He believed in the individual emphasis more, and he was very critical of the theories which did not take the individuals as the focal point of its analysis. So, for instance, his first theory, which was based on Marxism, was more focused on the class struggle of people, and he regarded that this theory led to the human being losing his individuality in order to become one part of the one class or the other. And then his philosophy also claimed to be a liberator of the man from the existing things that was putting a restriction on the human beings. And then, so he also categorized human beings he categorized three central agents, which was reason, morality, and freedom. And he said that these three elements help in forming this theory as a cosmopolitan theory. He wanted this to be resounding throughout the world, and he said that his theory was these three fundamental agents was helping in that, because he proposed it as a cosmopolitan commonwealth of spiritually free men who will not be bounded by anything, certain theories like communist state, democratic state, capitalist state, nothing. He wanted a partyless democracy, which was not anyway put into action, but he wanted to form the government through small groups from the local level and then expand it to the federal structure. And he believed that in the party structure or in the power lied with leaders who are not accountable to the people. Then his another point of theory is his materialistic metaphysics, and this is actually rested on the new scientific discoveries of the time. So, Roy's metaphysics is emphasizing that there is only one reality, which is matter or energy, and he does not focus on any spiritual or supernatural substance like other philosophers. And Roy remained a materialist and a naturalist who rejected the ideas of idealism, theism, and dualism alike. And he also emphasized that his philosophy is of materialistic metaphysics is different from the already existing ideas of materialism, like the mechanistic materialism and the dualistic materialism. In the mechanistic materialism, it is said that all phenomena, including the mind and consciousness, are reducible to simple notions of matter, but there is no room for emergence of anything. But his theory had the concept of emergence, and in dualistic metaphysics, it mostly focused on the economic aspects, which was highly against his principles. And he said that subordinating the individual and consciousness to historic economic laws, operating with certain ideas based on this is against the individual liberty, and just reduces the human identity to economic aspects. So his new alternative to this was also termed as new physicalism by certain philosophers, and it is drawn on 20th century developments like the quantum theory and emergent evolution. He says that matter is not inert and dead stuff, but it has certain emergent properties and it is evolving. And he says that consciousness and mind are also emergent properties which arise out of matter at a certain level of complexity. And he affirms through his theory about the determinism at the level of physical law, which is why he is a critic of God, and he says that the universe is governed by the natural causation and not by any supernatural ideas which already exist. He also bases his ethics on the same radical humanism principles, but radicalism in this sense is moving on to the people who were ignored or not in focus of the nationalist movement. And his ethics is based on rationalism as a basis of morality. And he says that as humans are already rational by nature, morality does not require an external sanction like an external leader or an external god to understand our morality. And his notion of freedom is not limited. He also says that freedom is the representation of individuals' maximum soul. Freedom, he considered freedom as the ultimate. His problems with the communism also arise from this concept. Communism often tended to have a theory that freedom is something to be achieved after the revolution, but he believed that freedom was something which was part of the movement and is very fundamental to the human nature. So he also critiqued the collectivism of fascism and communism, in which we attributed individuals to certain groups. He said that radical humanism insists on the good of society, which is only formed and pursued through the reason and freedom of its constituent individuals, which humans are the focal point of his theory. His theories are certainly criticized based on his critique of party and parliamentary democracy, because he proposed a partyless politics, but it is almost not in practice in most of the countries of the world, especially in India where he wanted to practice it. We already have party politics only, and his concept of federalism is in practice but in a different way. And his cooperative economy thing is also not in practice in a full extent. He wanted to have the economic theories in a cooperative way and not controlled by a certain section of the society. So, in conclusion, M.N. Roy's radical humanism is actually an attempt to form a complete philosophy with his own metaphysics, which is materialist, and then ethics based on his radical humanism, and then his own political theory where there is no party, and he reinterpreted this thing through reason and freedom of the individual. Then, in his theory, he wanted to form based on three things. That is reason, morality, and freedom. Which is in his basis, humanism rests on these values, and he presented the theory of new humanism as a comprehensive and a theoretical construct which seek to advance the model of life which was already existing in India at that time. This is my